The alarms blared across the dilation array hub, painting the sterile corridors in harsh crimson. Dr. Mara Voss sprinted past maintenance droids and flickering consoles as reality itself hiccuped, her reflection glitching in a sheet of plexiglass, showing a face she didn't recognize. She shook her head, fighting panic. Not again. In Lab Delta, two other figures huddled over a humming time sequencer. Ed Cipher Song slammed keys with fists, cursing under his breath. It's spiking again. Another chronal rift, Sector 11. That's the third one this week. Beside him, Irina Adebayo's hands steadied a series of neural cables. I'm seeing a pattern. Every time someone, something, steps in upstream, and suddenly our records don't match. Our memories don't match. Mara burst in, eyes wild. I just saw a reality slip, like I was someone else for a second. Cipher stared at her, voice low. You're not alone. Irina just remembered our supervisor's birth date being different. But the archives... Irina finished, cold dread in her voice. They say it was always like that. As the three scientists traded glances, an emergency call came through. Lab Delta, anomaly containment failure. All non-essential personnel evacuate. Cipher cracked a grim smile. That's us. We're never essential. We're always the cleanup crew. But this isn't like the others, Mara said. Something is changing our reality. On purpose. And if we don't stop them, who will even remember what's real? Revolvers of doubt and adrenaline, the trio grabbed portable dilation packs and slipped into the fissuring darkness of the array's labyrinthine lower decks, where the fabric of time shimmered and the walls whispered in voices long erased. Outside, the stars stood strangely still, but nothing in their world had ever been more uncertain. This was the night the fight for reality began, and time was already running out. Deeper in the array's underbelly, the air was thick with static and echoes of events that barely happened. Cipher led the way, flashlight beam jittering off exposed circuitry as the walls flickered from silver to rusted bronze and then, just for a heartbeat, to something molten and impossible. Mara tensed. Did you see that? Irina nodded. Feels like someone's editing the building itself. They found a maintenance hatch, pried it open, and dropped into the chronal service gallery, a hidden artery running beneath the main operations center, unknown to most outside the original engineering teams. From here, every signal that hopped through the array's dilated channels could be monitored. Cipher knelt by a tangle of old monitor wires and rerouted the signals to his wristpad. An ominous pattern emerged. Coordinated pulses, laced with artifacts of an artificial time signature. Look at this. Someone's deliberately injecting retrocausal data. They're overwriting not just memories, but events we all act upon. Irina's brow tightened. But who could hide from the global registry? Every action, every jump, leaves a trace in the stack. A burst of static snapped through the gallery, followed by a cold mechanical voice. Unauthorized access detected. Shutdown protocol engaged. Doors clanged shut above them, and the temperature dropped sharply. Mara glared at Cipher. Tell me you can get us out of here. Working on it. He jabbed at the pad, beads of sweat on his forehead. But whoever they are, they've locked us out at the network route. They're good. Real good. Irina flickered her light along the wall, revealing an old logo, Chronal Syndicate, buried beneath layers of paint. No one talks about them anymore. My mentor once said they vanished after the first-time wars. But what if they just went underground? Cipher's voice grew tense. Then we're up against the ones who wrote the playbook for time sabotage, and they're rewriting the rules again. Suddenly the gallery shimmered violently. A spiraling black fissure yawned open behind them, sucking in light and hope. A figure, half glimpsed, its outlines stuttering between eras, stepped through. Mara instinctively raised her emitter baton as Cipher cursed, ducking sideways. The entity's voice echoed, dissonant and haunting. Turn back, or lose yourselves to the ChronoFlux. For a breathless second, time seemed to pause. The team exchanged a look, defiant, terrified, unyielding. Mara gripped her baton tighter. We're not going anywhere, not until we know what you've done to our world. The figure smiled, a flicker of warmth that vanished as quick as it came. And then, with a pulse of impossible energy, the chase truly began. The gallery exploded with light, scenes stuttering through time, a celebration from a century ago, a fight that should never have happened, a corridor reduced to dust. The syndicate agent vanished, leaving ripples in his wake. Cipher screamed over the noise, "We have to move now!" Irina dragged Mara as Cipher led the way through collapsing tunnels, their steps echoed by distorted shadows, echoes or possible futures, no one could tell. Keep together. Chronal distortions can separate your mind before your body knows it, Irina shouted, her voice cracking with fear. They found a maintenance ladder that hadn't existed a second before and scrambled up into a forgotten control room. Doors juddered between polished steel and centuries-old iron. Cipher tried the console, desperation sharpening his movements. Mara peered through warped windows at the chronal core. Great rings spinning, pulses searing blue across the foundation of the array. That agent. He recognized us. Or maybe just me, she muttered, rubbing her temple. Irina steadied Mara. You're shaking. Try to remember what changed in your life, Mara. What's the earliest thing that feels wrong? Mara closed her eyes, facing memories shrouded in fog. Flashes. A mentor with no name, a childhood home that swapped colors with each thought. I used to have a sister, but now I don't. Cipher looked up sharply. Syndicate's edits aren't just data, they're erasing people, rewriting bloodlines. Suddenly, the console flickered with a series of paradox alerts, a recursive loop threatening to crash the array. They're about to sever a timeline. If they succeed, everything from that root event, gone, including anyone who depended on it. Irina's voice was hoarse. Cipher, can you reroute the stabilization feeds? If we inject a false anchor, maybe we can keep this segment of reality stable for a few hours. Cipher cracked his knuckles. I'll try, but if they catch us, they'll do more than erase us. We fight, Mara whispered, the steely edge of loss in her eyes. We fight until there's nothing left or time remembers us. The rogue scientists worked with shaking hands and pounding hearts, racing the Syndicate's erasure protocol. And far below, another fracture in time widened, promising the arrival of someone or something even worse. The room trembled as Cipher pulled at code lines like tangled roots. Each keystroke made reality wobble. Irina's reflection swapped between a scar on her cheek and none at all, while Mara's chronal pack hummed in rising protest. Irina steadied Cipher with a firm hand on his shoulder. You're almost there. The paradox alerts are slowing. Almost. Got it, Cipher grunted, sweat beating down his face. If I anchor us to January 12th, 2532, that should force the system to recognize this timeline as valid. Mara's gaze darted to the corridor. Do it, but hurry. I can feel something coming. Cipher slammed the final command. The tremors steadied, but the world outside their control room rippled with broken imagery, memories and possibilities interlacing dangerously. Sirens wailed, and the array's PA system spat white noise and fragmented voices. Syndicate intervention. Parameters shifted. Unauthorized stabilization detected. Suddenly, a hollow clang echoed outside as Syndicate operatives materialized from flickering swirls, dark silhouettes with faces blurred, their attire rippling through uniforms of different eras. They advanced with phase disruptors drawn. Irina whispered, 3 of them. Syndicate for sure. Cipher braced himself behind the desk, pulling free a battered sidearm. Mara lifted her emitter baton. She took a breath, feeling fear and determination blend within her. We're outgunned, but they've never fought us before. The lead operative's voice, impossibly calm, cut through the chaos. Return control. Cease your temporal anchoring, or cease to be. Without missing a beat, Irina called back. You first. Why erase us? What are you after? Another agent, tall, with eyes flashing silver, smiled coldly. To keep humanity's story pure, you muddy it, with doubt, with hope. Cipher and Mara exchanged a glance. Cipher whispered, if you can distract them, I can lock the doors and feed the array some nonsense. Trap them in a zero-time loop for a minute. Mara nodded and took a step forward, her voice strong despite the tremor beneath it. Then do it, we'll hold them. A surge of pride, sharp as electricity, ran through her. For the first time, Mara wasn't just surviving, she was choosing to fight. Let's see if time's on our side, she muttered, and swung the baton as the Syndicate charged. The room erupted in crackling energy, timelines colliding with raw will. The fate of memory, and maybe all of reality, hung by the thinnest thread. The captured Syndicate agents flickered between uniforms, Praetorian silver, royal blue, and Arctic black, caught inside Cipher's zero-time loop. As time folded around them, Irina and Mara pressed their attack, knocking weapons from unfocused hands. Cipher grunted, sweat pouring as he maintained the temporal snare. Irina dragged one agent aside, pinning his arm. What did you do to our families, our world? The agent sneered, gaze fracturing like shattered mirrors. Your footnotes, edits to be pruned. With a sharp gesture, Cipher slammed down the reinforced override, locking the room's doors. They don't care who vanishes, only that their perfect history is all that remains. Mara's anger boiled. For a moment, she saw herself as a 10-year-old, her sister holding her hand, two people instead of one. Tell me why you erase us. Why doesn't anyone remember? Flashes of compassion warred with programming in the agent's eyes. Every story has echoes. If you cut enough, none are left to sound the alarm. The standoff was broken by a sudden pulse. The array's mainframe groaned, bleeding chronal static. Screens lit up with cascading data, a message trying to punch through, unsigned but urgent. You're not alone. Find the obelisk in the Hermitage, key to the primal branch, run. Irina's hands shook. Her faith in their resistance was fragile but growing. That's all the time we'll get, literally. Cipher disabled the loop, agents phased and blinked, but before they could regain footing, Mara flung a surge from her baton, tangling their timelines in confusion. Go, Cipher yelled. They barreled out, down a half-imagined emergency stairwell, chased by shouts and flickering firearms. The Hermitage, an old archive city buried 2 kilometers below array grounds, had fallen out of use centuries ago, or perhaps had never existed at all, depending on which history the syndicate preferred. Mara led, impossibly sure-footed now. Fear had sharpened into resolve. We find the obelisk. We change the rules. Behind them, reality's cracks widened, entire memories whispering into oblivion. Ahead, the Hermitage breathed faint blue in the darkness, a promise that the past, for now, still held its secrets. Their flight through the fractured array felt more desperate with every step. Mara risked a glance at Cipher, ashen-faced, jaw clenched as he rerouted security feeds to block their pursuers for a precious few minutes. Irina's scanner pulsed with erratic readings, the boundaries of solid space flickering at the edges of her vision. Each corridor was a history, rewritten on the fly. Sometimes the signs were in Old Earth English, other times in alien dialects learned centuries after first contact. Lights were either glimmering white or cast in sepia gloom, memory and fact blurring. Shortcut up ahead, Cipher panted, skidding to a stop before a service lift hidden where seconds before there'd been only blank wall. This'll take us straight into the Hermitage's upper stacks, if it doesn't dump us in the Jurassic, that is. Irina forced a laugh, brushing away fear. Of all the timelines to fall through, let's hope for dusty books instead of dinosaurs. The lift's doors closed around them with a shudder. For a moment, there was only the sensation of falling, then a violent jolt, as if they'd been spat out into another era entirely. When the doors opened, the Hermitage stretched before them. Endless vaults lined with memory crystals, machines for reading forgotten languages, relics sealed in stasis. Map projections floated on clouds of data fog, showing versions of history both familiar and utterly alien. Cipher gaped. It's beautiful and impossible. Irina touched Mara's shoulder. We keep moving. The obelisk will be at the center, at the heart of all timelines. They hurried through the winding stacks, passing shards of their own erased lives. Mara glimpsed, just out of reach, the ghost of her sister at a birthday party that never was. Finally, in the central rotunda, they found it, a monolithic black stone, humming with the same angry blue that powered the array. The obelisk. On its surface, symbols flickered, warning, temptation, hope. Cipher approached, instincts screaming. What do we do with it? A whisper curled from the stone, forming half-understood syllables in their minds. Restore. Choose anchor. Mara set her hand on the obelisk, feeling its cold certainty. Irina watched as Mara's eyes dilated, her hands steady for the first time all day. She remembered fear, anger, then clarity. She was done letting others rewrite her fate. I know what we have to do, Mara said quietly. We rewrite it back, a timeline they can't erase. Above them, sirens wailed. Time had run out. The syndicate was descending. But for the first time, Mara and her team weren't just running. They had a chance to take reality itself into their own hands. Cipher circled the obelisk with his scanner, every reading coming up paradoxical, an object impossibly old and yet newly forged. The blue glow throbbed to Mara's touch as if sensing her determination. Irina guarded the entrance with her baton, peering through flashes of light that suggested syndicate hunters were already on their trail. Irina hissed, We can't hold them off long. Whatever you're going to do, Mara, do it fast. Mara pressed both hands to the cold stone. Static leapt up her arms. Images flooded her mind. Timelines unwinding, reforming, a lattice of possibilities like a living map. A single memory of her lost sister anchored her. She spoke through trembling lips. Obelisk, anchor the timeline where my team and I remember what was lost, where we know the truth. Cipher's eyes widened as the room shimmered, memory crystals changing color, histories flickering until their own past was a thread of stubborn persistence in a storm of change. The array's reality warp began slowing, warned by an unfamiliar resistance. The obelisk responded with a shockwave, expelling wave after wave of clarity. Cipher's head snapped back as erased moments blazed into painful focus. Childhood, family faces, every detail the syndicate had tried to wipe away. Irina gasped, tears tracing her cheeks as memories she hadn't known she'd lost slammed into her mind. Her mother's lullaby from a forgotten night. "It's working!" Cipher yelled, ducking as a syndicate agent burst through the entry, weapon primed. The obelisk shockwave sent the agent reeling, his outline fuzzing at the edges before he retreated in fear. Irina spun to Mara, urgency in her voice. "We're visible now, but so is the truth. They know where the anchor is. They'll bring everything to destroy it." With new strength, Mara turned to her friends. "We hold until it's done. We use the obelisk to force every timeline to remember. The syndicate can erase lies, but they can't erase what we choose to anchor together." Cipher's nerves steadied. After all the running and hiding, they were making the rules now. Crunching boots and distorted voices sounded nearer. Syndicate backup storming the Hermitage. Mara braced herself, her friends by her side, the obelisk's power thrumming beneath their hands. For the first time they felt like the authors of history themselves. "Let them come," Mara said, eyes blazing. "We've got something they'll never understand." The battle for the heart of memory was about to begin. The Hermitage's crystalline dome shuddered as syndicate shock troops poured into the rotunda, their phase disruptors carving arcs of pale light. Mara bonded to the obelisk, feeling her mind stretch between realities, seeing the threads of what could be and what had already been lost. Her fear melted into defiance. She would not let her memories, her truth, be deleted. Cipher ducked behind a reading console, sending out a burst of code that tricked a pursuing agent into chasing an echo down a tangled corridor of fractured history. Irina fought nearby, holding off syndicate operatives with wild, desperate swings of her emitter baton, sparks flying as two timelines tried to overwash each other in the same space. "If we hold the obelisk for one more minute," Cipher shouted, "the anchor should ripple through every stack in the Hermitage, every forgotten truth, every erased life, back in the minds of the people who lost them." Irina dodged a stun round. "And if we fail?" "The syndicate locks the anchor out," Mara said through clenched teeth, sweat running down her brow. "Our reality, the one where we even exist, vanishes like another oversight." The obelisk's pulse quickened, energy snaking storms of blue between the stacks. Mara's memories became sharp. Her sister's laughter, Cipher's nervous jokes back during that legendary unapproved experiment, Irina's fierce hugs when their first project failed. She wove them all into the timeline she anchored, a web of stubborn, human persistence. The lead syndicate agent advanced, pressing a gleaming device to the obelisk's surface. The entire rotunda flickered between existing and not, time itself rebelling at the point of interference. "You amateurs cannot comprehend what you threaten," the agent intoned. "An unedited multiverse is chaos. Only one narrative can survive." Mara glared. "You call it chaos. I call it freedom." Irina leaped, knocking the device from the syndicate agent's hand. Cipher jammed a spike into the array's remote console, locking out administrative override. "Now, Mara!" Mara focused on her memory of her sister, so real she could hear her voice, and let the obelisk take it, broadcast it, plant it like a seed across the timelines. The blue storm spread instantly, reaching every edge of the Hermitage, the pulses growing with the strength of a story retold. For an instant, everything went still. Across the galaxy, people felt flickers of reality, forgotten celebrations, loves, betrayals, old fears, rush back into existence. A timeline where they'd been erased by the syndicate was suddenly real again, undeniable. And as the syndicate staggered from the blow, Mara realized with wild hope that they'd turned the tide. But as new, unstable realities reasserted themselves. The array howled its protest, a meltdown threatening not just their future, but the fabric of time itself. The Hermitage roared with the fury of cascading timelines. Blue energy shot up the walls as the array's warnings echoed through every inch of the ancient archive. Hundreds of syndicate agents flickered between possibility and oblivion, their uniforms warping with each second. Irina staggered to Mara, her eyes wide with awe and dread. "We did it! People remember, but the fabric's coming undone. The array's collapsing under the strain." Cipher dove beneath the main reader console, sparks showering him as he rewired the Hermitage's stabilizers. "If we don't patch the chronal rift, every anchored memory will fight for dominance. Reality will eat itself alive." The obelisk now pulsed faster than ever before. Mara fought waves of exhaustion, watching memories, her own, Cipher's, Irina's, begin to blend and clash at the edges. Whole shelves of history flickered, 1,000 truths vying to overwrite each other. The Syndicate's surviving commander broke through the clash of time, shouting, "Fools! The multiverse needs order. Without the master branch, every timeline will shatter." Mara squared her shoulders, determination burning through her fatigue. Order is only worth it if people have the freedom to remember who they are. Cipher, frantically tapping his pad, muttered, "I can't hold the stabilizer much longer. We need every soul who remembers to choose this timeline as home. I can use the array to magnify the anchor, but only with emotional resonance. The obelisk needs a final, true story to unify it all." Irina's hands went to her heart. "Our story." Realization dawned on Mara. "We get one chance, a single thread of collective memory to tie all the others together. We have to make it more powerful than anything the Syndicate can edit." The array shuddered, cracks forming in the obelisk's surface. The city above blinked in and out of existence, one moment a bustling metropolis, the next barren ruins. People everywhere clutched their heads as crashing waves of memory left them dizzy, unsure what was real. Syndicate troops pressed closer, weapons raised. The commander barked, "Erase the renegades! Restore primacy to the master timeline!" Cipher steadied his hands, looking at Mara and Irina. "What's our story, Mara? What's the truth worth remembering, even if it hurts?" Mara's pulse quickened. She thought of her lost sister, her friends by her side, and the millions of lives echoing through time. She spoke, loud and clear, as the array's storm peaked around them. "We're more than edits. We're every hope, every mistake, every act of love or courage. We fight for every person who ever was. That's the story, the one worth saving." Irina grabbed Mara and Cipher's hands, channeling her own vision. The beauty of fractured, messy lives. Cipher fed their unified memories into the array, letting the obelisk blaze with their stubborn humanity. The array hesitated, networks straining to absorb the immensity of their truth. Time hung by a thread, everything riding on the next few seconds, as the Syndicate's last push loomed like an unstoppable tide. Raw chronal energy screamed through the Hermitage, threatening to tear the foundation from under Mara, Cipher, and Irina. Syndicate agents surged forward, phase disruptors aimed, but their forms sputtered with the effort of holding together in a world flooded with unedited memory. Cipher's trembling hand found Mara's shoulder. "The obelisk is straining, but it's listening. One last push. Mara, you have to imprint the anchor. Your story. It has to come from you." Irina nodded, her voice shaking with hope and fear. "Make it real for everyone. Make us real." Mara closed her eyes, remembering every piece of herself the Syndicate had tried to overwrite. The bedtime stories she shared with a sister who both did and didn't exist. The laughter and stolen moments with Cipher and Irina, and the collective longing of millions who wanted to be remembered just as they were. With all her strength, Mara pressed her hand to the obelisk. Inside her mind, she spoke, not just to the stone, but to every living memory. "We are more than anyone's idea of perfection. Our chaos, our wounds, our dreams, these are what make us real. No one gets to erase us. We hold each other, anchor each other, until time itself remembers us. No master branch, only the truth, chosen together." As the words filled the Hermitage, the obelisk burst with channeling their story into every filament of the chronal network. Outside, everyone who had felt the ripple, those who had lost, forgotten, or been erased, felt an answering surge of belonging. Memories snapped into focus. Realities knit together, not in sterile perfection, but in glorious, honest messiness. The syndicate commander screamed as the authority drained from his voice. His agents collapsed, their uniforms blurring before dissolving into echoes. The control the syndicate held for centuries slipped away as humanity's shared story outshone their single narrative. The array stabilized beneath Mara's hand, the rifts gluing shut as the system recognized a new anchor. Not perfection, but unity in diversity and memory. The remnants of the syndicate's programming, empty edits and forgotten orders, crumpled to dust. Cipher exhaled, almost in disbelief. Did we make it stick? Irina laughed through tears. We did more than survive, Cipher. We made ourselves unforgettable. As the storm quieted, Mara dropped to her knees, overwhelmed but lighter, and Irina knelt, arms wrapping both friends tightly. For a moment, Mara could almost feel her sister's hand clasping hers. Gone, but not lost, never again erased. Above them, the Hermitage's dome shimmered with dawn, fractured but whole. Mara stood, her voice steady at last. Let's go home. Not to what's edited, but to what we choose. What we remember. Together. Across the galaxy, people woke to worlds fuller and truer than before, each bearing the hidden mark of ChronoFlux, a future saved not by force, but by the power of memory and the refusal to be for. Heroes of the Hermitage left the obelisk behind, a silent guardian at history's heart, knowing that time's greatest force isn't order, it's choice.